We're going to give her just another minute to get here, and we're going to get started. And everything's been running a little bit late, but I think we're the last panel, so we can run a little bit late if we have to. So, okay.
We can navigate from there. We can
If Marcella comes in, there you are.
Play this because we have one video and to play,
Right.
which is really cool. So.
Can we get a microphone for Marcella? Okay. Just join us when you're ready, okay? It's now towards the end of the day. Things are getting, it's not so polished anymore. We're getting a little bit haggard. But we promise what we don't make up for show and style, we will make up in content, because we have an excellent panel for you today. My name is Drew Sullivan. I'm the editor of the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. We're a nonprofit that works with a number of different organizations, including a couple of our speakers today, but with many people who are here. We're going to be talking about organized crime, and specifically how to report on organized crime, because it's one of the more interesting areas that we deal with as journalists, but it's also a difficult area to deal with. And there have been over the years organized crime reporters, people who have specialized in reporting on organized crime. And we hope to demystify that a little bit and give you some ideas on how you can report on this issue, but also to warn you about the hazards, the difficulties, and the other problems. Organized crime is not significantly different from any other type of reporting. Actually, some of the best reporters to work in organized crime have business backgrounds, business reporting backgrounds, because it really is about tracking businesses and tracking relationships between people and businesses, following the money, and that's kind of the core work as it is in any kind of grand corruption. But organized crime adds another element. It adds the element of safety. It adds the element of secret societies or secret organizations that are impenetrable, and also a journalistic problem. You know, we don't write stories outing drug dealers. We talk about generally how organized crime works in our cultures, in our societies, and how they cause corruption. But our job is not to be police. It's more to talk about the effects of these things. So it leads to some very interesting situations. We're very lucky to have three wonderful speakers. I will start off by introducing Stevan. Stevan Dojcinovic is the founder of Creek, which means in English shout. It's a new website in Serbia, but he's the former editor of the Center for Investigative Reporting in Serbia. And he's probably, I would say, join us. He's probably one of the best investigative reporters on organized crime in the Balkans, and the Balkans is one of the richest areas of organized crime in the world. So, and he's focused on organized crime much more so than a lot of reporters. And so he's got some interesting insights, and he will be providing them to us. Cecilia Anesi, am I pronouncing that?
Correct.
That's pretty good, because I never pronounce anything correct. Cecilia is a reporter for Corrective, which is a German nonprofit investigative reporting organization, but she's also on the board and the president of IRPI, the Investigative Reporting Project of Italy. And she was also the author of Toxic Europe, a journalism documentary that received quite a bit of attention. Many of you will remember that. And she has worked a lot on Italian organized crime, and she's worked a lot working with other organizations on Italian organized crime. So welcome, Cecilia. And I'm going to have to, because I didn't get the information, going to have you introduce yourself, Marcela. So.
Yes, I am Marcela Turati. I'm Mexican. I work for Proceso magazine that is specialized in corruption, drug trafficking, and corruption and drug trafficking is the specialty. And I cover the violence. And in Periodistas de a Pie, the organization that I co-founded, we made an investigation about the massacres of immigrants committed by the Los Zetas, the cartel.
Excellent. So welcome. Now, we're going to do a little kind of different format here to try to make this interesting and engaging, and that is to allow you guys into the process fairly early. I'm going to be kind of a moderator, and I'm going to be asking them questions, but if you have microphones over there, if we could get somebody set up to ask a question when they have a question fairly early on, then we can start incorporating you all into this process. So I'm going to ask, Marcella's asked for, you've asked for about 5 minutes to talk first because you want to say some things before we get into the questioning. Is that correct, or do you want to go straight to the questions?
No, I just told you that we in Mexico, we are not specialized in the follow the money. No, that
Right.
we are now in this moment just covering the crime and all the killings and massacres and trying to investigate it and the links with the politics, but not.
Well, let's start on that issue of killings. I'm an editor of the Organized Crime Project, and so the first thing people always say to me is, gee, that's really dangerous, isn't it? So let's get let's start with Stefan and answer that question. Gee, that's really dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's the most common question. Wherever I go and give some training panels or wherever, people usually ask me this, and answer is quite complicated, right? We could speak like for full day just to understand how this thing really works. But what is important is like when you really investigate on organized crime, you build a lot of relation in this area. So it means like it's not, I don't see investigating organized crime to being some journalist who's just like doing it from its office, analyzing police records and building the story. So it's not possible to really deeply do this story if you're not in some kind of interaction with organized crime structures. So you're communicating with this world in some way. And actually in Serbia, I had this opportunity to even sit and speak with the most of even these drug lords, like the main guys, and many, many other guys who are basically working with them. So handling this relation pretty well, taking care for your security, using also, while on internet, also in physical life, and be careful while writing a story. This mixture of these three basically can bring you some kind of area which maybe you cannot say it's completely safe, but still it's some area where basically you cannot sleep in some problem. I mean, Drew actually had one good saying, it's reporting on organized crime is like handling the snakes, like these guys in India, you know, who's handling the snakes. You always look at this and it looks really crazy for you. Like I saw some videos on a video on Facebook yesterday when some guy even like hitting snake in the head, you know. For me, this looks completely crazy. I mean, how this guy can do this thing, you know? And but in a way, he learned how to behave with the snake. So that's the whole thing. You need to really learn, you know, what is the mental structure of these guys. And that's what reporters are always missing. So all of them are some kind of human beings, basically. So you really need to understand what they think, what can really provoke them to do something to you, right? And what is exactly their position, because it's completely different, like what mafia boss will look like. It's different his advisor, what will think about, and low-level guys, you know? In real life, there are bigger chances you'll be harmed by low-level guys, like really like smuggler on the street, than that some big mafia guy will bring decision to pay somebody to kill you. So you really need to understand these guys, right? And sometimes you'll have opportunity even to meet them, which will give you better impression on these guys. And then relying on their mental structure and story you're doing, you can basically estimate in what kind of situation you are. Because you really need to think all the way, like, what is your position in that moment? Are you safe or not? I'll just give you one simple example. For instance, once we even doing something in OCCRP which could say like safe editing of the story. I don't ever heard other media basically do this. And once me and Drew, I was reporting on some story which involved one guy, it was not a big criminal figure in Belgrade, but he was known in town as extremely tough guy. And it was a guy I even didn't call for interview, because what we heard in town, he's known for solving any problem in 24 hours. So we didn't know if we call him what will happen in 24 hours. So we just need to publish the story. But we were advised also by cops and other guys from Underworld that we could get in big problems with him after publishing the story. But I spoke with one guy who basically know him, who's also one criminal not working for his organization, and he gave us a couple of hints on him, what he making him pissed off or not, And according to that, we could in editing of the stories, little bit shape it in a way to make him less irritated when it was published. So, for instance, really good hint was that the story exposed one document which I had from Secret Service, and usually we don't just publish these documents because, intelligence documents are always full of some rumors. It doesn't mean it to be correct, so we don't publish them. But we publish them when we find at least 2 more sources to confirm content of this document. So it's like journalistic rule. So basically we have 3 sources, document and 2 more to confirm this. And we have guys from Underworld confirming these parts of the documents on him, and we have some cops. And what is interesting, one of the advices which this criminal gave us is basically that it's good to live in the story that we have these confirmed parts by cops, but if we say in story that we have criminals confirming parts, he will do wherever he can to learn who these criminals are. Because he don't really care about, in the end, journalists or cops, but he will not allow that somebody from Underworld to cooperate with cops and journalists. So we just remove one couple of words which saying that we have criminals who confirm this, and the story stayed, but we make it kind of less safer because this guy will come at me basically.
He'll come to you to find out who the criminals are, which could be very dangerous.
Yeah. So I just give a simple one of the things. It's something it's really hard to give some general. I can give some general advices, but you really need to analyze every situation you have because all of them others. I don't know.
So let's first talk to Cecilia, and I want to ask the same question. This is really dangerous, isn't it?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I'm speaking today not just for myself, but also for the other reporters I work with on these topics, because I don't do it alone. 2 of them are here, so Giulio and Margarita, if they can raise their hands. We work with them on daily reporting on the Italian mafia, not just in Italy, but like internationally. With a focus on Germany, but we've been covering large international operations like Canada, the States, and so on and so forth. And also, at the same time, representing the colleagues of Europe, which we did, for example, Mafia in Africa and different works like that. So this, just to say, is it really dangerous? We don't know. So while Stefan was talking, I was just writing some notes down. First of all, I think what he was saying in terms of having relation in the underworld, it's important, but for what concerns Italy, historically there's been no tradition to be in touch with mafia figures. You don't really have, reporters have been writing about them, risking their lives, but very rarely they will get in touch with them, maybe because of the structure of Italian mafia as well.
Well, explain that. Why the structure in the Italian mafia?
Well, when we talk about Italian mafia, we're talking about 3 different groups, and they're very different to each other. One is the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, one is the Calabrian 'Ndrangheta, and one is the Camorra from Campania. Camorra is the more noisy one. They like to drive big cars, have hot girls close to them, and when they get arrested, most times they start collaborating with justice. Like they start talking to prosecutors. And so it's kind of easy to catch them. At the same time, there are some of the most violent ones that don't really reason a lot. They shoot more than the others, even between themselves. Like at the moment, there is a war between 16 years old mafia members in Naples and the city. So it's like Obviously, this is not good because it would capture attention. The other two mafias are much more serious in the way they behave, and there isn't much killings apart from when it's really needed. For sure, the 'Ndrangheta is the one that has least collaborators. So for institutions, it's been really hard to understand who rules, and the same is for journalists, of course. So we have mainly to rely on police reports, on criminal investigations. Sometimes you're lucky enough to talk to some of these collaborators or intermediates figure that can put you on the right track, but it's really hard to go and talk to these people.
And one advantage you have is the police in Italy, and the anti-mafia police are very good.
Yes.
And have lots of information.
In fact, in this sense, I think we're maybe the only country or one of the very few countries in which, for what concerns the anti-mafia departments, which is certain departments within police and prosecution, you can trust most of them because you really have people that live under armed escorts, don't have a life anymore, they really just work on that. And obviously they're happy to work with journalists who do the work seriously. So that is one of our sources of information for sure. I think teamwork, it's the most effective protection you can have, because if you talk about shooting, I don't think they would shoot a journalist, but if you're 10 of them, then it becomes a bit more complex to menace journalists. Then I think also adding to what you said, it's very important being accurate in the reporting, and we always, and this I must admit we learn from OCCRP, to always contact the people, either directly or through the lawyers. Mm-hmm. Most of the times we don't get replies. For example, I'm going to quote a case that we did with Margherita and Giulio. Italian investigators identified a powerful network of the 'Ndrangheta in Switzerland and Germany. But these men were quoted in a court record, but were not arrested. So what we did, we knew that one of these people was a boss in Engen, which is a German town. And Margherita found out the address of this guy, and we wrote him a letter saying, look, we're going to write a story about you, so get back to us if you want. And we sent it with, I don't know how it's called in English, but when he has to sign because he received it. So we actually know that he received it, but he never got back. Now, this man has been arrested recently and then released again because German law just worked that way in this case. They say the crime is expired, but in Italy we know that a mafia boss will never expire. So we don't really know how dangerous it could be, for example, even in Germany, in which there is public opinion is less trained, and in which institutions don't have the power that Italian institutions have to fight mafia. We don't really know if these guys out of Italy might be more dangerous than what they are in our own country. And we don't know when it clicks, so to say. But obviously, if you have to think about it all the time, you don't do it. So we're trying to be as safe as possible, as he said. And what we think is that reporters that work on field, so a reporter living in perhaps Palermo or Agrigento 24/7, obviously he's more exposed to risk than we are because we have an international network of reporters. Even if we just report on national news, we always have a big team and we move a lot. Whereas a reporter who is on ground, and in fact, we've got loads of them being menaced to death in Italy, or their car is set on fire and stuff like that. And unfortunately, it's a phenomenon that you can't really foresee when does it start or not. But
Great.
Generally, if journalists get really seriously menaced, they get an armed escort from the state.
Okay.
Can I just say, what you said is extremely important, is that many journalists think when they come to interviewing like really mafia figures, they feel like unsafe to call them from interview. But actually, in reality, you're much safer if you call them for many other reasons.
Yes.
In the West, they will, like, you can never escape from them. So if they want to reach you, they'll reach you. But if you're not approachable, they can just send you somebody to beat you or like even to shoot you. But if you kind of allow them to have some line of communication with you, it's much safer area basically than not to do it.
Okay, Marcella, Mexico, Dios mío. I've been working in organized crime now for 10 years, but Mexico scares the hell out of me,
Yes.
more than any other country. We know it's not safe, but talk about reporting on organized crime in Mexico and the safety issue.
Yes, in a safety issue, I don't know if it can be possible. I think in the past years, we have more access to these kind of issues and to the narco lawyers, no? The lawyers of the criminals and the cops and judicial sources. But now, since this all blood and all this violence start when the drug and traffics were declared, is really dangerous be near of these persons, of these people, because the other group can consider you as part of this criminal organization. And now they are punishing more and more the journalists and all the enemies. Every cartel has have their own signature and a different way to implement the terror, no? And sometimes they have decapitated journalists recently or killed in little pieces, and things really difficult and really hard for everybody. Many journalists still have these contacts, but it has to be like really, really secretly. Other source can be the victims of these criminals. That's the work mostly that I do, or the judicial files, but many of the information is wrong, no? Is corruption in this judicial system. Or the information in the United States is in the courts. We have more information sometimes in the United States than in Mexico. And another source interesting that is the narco blogs, no? The blogs that the same people from the cartels put the comments, and sometimes they filter a video or some information that can be a clue for what you are investigating. And in Mexico, I don't know, I think that it was really quickly, and we were unprepared for all this violence, and we tried to implement safety protocols to visit or to go to dangerous zones. We tried to have contact with the local people, but one of the main preoccupations, the main worry is that the people you source or the whistleblowers can be killed. So you have to really implement different ways to make contact with the people. And another thing that we are trying in the organization that I co-founded, we try to give is psychological and mental help for many journalists, because it's really, really stressful, and it's too much pain going to this kind of issues, no? You don't know many times who you are, you don't know who you are talking with, if the mayor that you are interviewing is part of the mafia, the cop is part.
Even the person in your newsroom may be part of the...
Yes, and sometimes, in many parts of Mexico, we can do trainings, like open trainings. The people say, please don't come or don't give this training to all the newsroom, because the journalist who is in the next seat, he works for the cartel, no? And he's always like spying what I am doing, and they are communicating and informing to the cartels. So it's really dangerous. The infiltration and the corruption is generally cited.
Stefan says, writing on organized crime is like handling snakes, but in Mexico you are in the snake pit, completely surrounded. So talk to us, Stefan mentioned that mentality, the mental structure of the people is very important to doing this work. Talk to us about Mexico and what is the mental structure of the narco gangs?
Every cartel is different. They have their different rules and different places, and include, for example, well, some of them, they are really, really violent, and they have the whole control of the territory, and the population and the territories are controlled. And we have, for example, one state, Tamaulipas, that is in the border with Texas, that you can't go as journalists. You have surveillance from the airport, from the border, and all the taxi drivers, the man who are giving the taco to eat, all the people, many people are enrolled and informing, and they have all this control. And in that place, for example, we don't know how many people is killed because we don't have information. The journalists can't give this information, and in that place they commit many massacres against migrants and general massacres, and we don't know. Sometimes, like 1 year or months later, we know this information, but we don't know how many people is disappearing daily and things like that. But there are another cartels and another places, and they are like more friendly. If they are not like that, I don't know.
The friendly cartel.
Yes, no, but the strongest, or those that have more control on the territory and the press, they have links with the militaries, and they have like a different way of things that the other cartels. So it's different, and every part of Mexico is they have different way to think, and some are more farmers, and others have military formation. So different.
So, Cecilia, we all think we know who the Italian mafia figure is. We've seen it in the movie 100 times, but tell us the real mentality of Italian mafia.
Right, again, I think we have to distinguish between the three different mafias, and then also inside the different mafias, also we've got clans, and they might be pretty different one to the others. I think for what concerns the Sicilian mafia, the mentality changed a lot after the 1990 mafia war that has been between different territories and families, where like hundreds of people of the mafia was killed. They killed each other. And when Matteo Messina Denaro, who's the current, according to investigators, he's the current boss of the Cosa Nostra, when he got into power, he completely changed the aims of Cosa Nostra from blood into money. Mm-hmm. It's funny that his surname Denaro means money in Italy, in Italian. So really, the Cosa Nostra shifted completely, and it became basically, we call it Mafia SPA, meaning like stock exchange company. They really got into business, into money laundering, into drugs, which before wasn't that much. It wasn't a thing. That's true also for the 'Ndrangheta. They didn't want to get into drugs initially, And for example, Camorra is known for, especially for waste trafficking. They really made a business out of it, offering services to companies, especially in the north of Italy and the north of Europe, to dispose of toxic waste in Campania. But there's been a clash between the old bosses who didn't want to poison their own land and the new bosses. So over the last 50 years, 40 years, mentality shifted a lot. And what you have today, and it's not just us journalists noticing, but it's mainly prosecutors who've been working like over 20 years, 30 years on this phenomenon. You really have, on one side, the top bosses live like Giulio before said in the Mafia in Africa panel, the shepherd life. Like they're hidden in a hole, you don't really know where, somewhere in the countryside, in Agrigento, possibly, or in the Aspromonte in Calabria, which is like mountains, and they live a very modest life. They can't enjoy the immense richness they have, because then they have bank accounts offshore everywhere in the world, and they could just buy anything they want. And then on the other side, you have intermediates who might enjoy a bit more of richness, but they surely, you know, you have brokers for drugs, for example. One of the greatest for the Andrangheta has been Pannunzi, and he was working with the Latin American narcos. He was the hinge between the two. And these kind of figures are completely different in mentality. They're more like finance brokers, really. And then also you have a new species, so to call it, which is well-educated members. For example, especially for the Andrangheta, they've been sent to Oxford, to Bocconi, to the best university in the world to learn finance, business, all these kind of things. And then they go back, well, they never leave the clan, but they go back to the clans and they know how to, you know, move the money, make it grow, do the money laundering without being caught. The scouts, which countries is best to go and invest in, buy real estate. So I think you have different typologies of people and mentalities for sure. So we have a lot of different profiles to do it. In each investigation you have, when there is like 50 people, you have very different layers within. Sometimes you get a big boss arrested, like a few weeks ago that had big names, but at the same time you have the other figures too. And if you read the court records, you figure out a bit the rows and how it works.
Okay, Stefan, the Balkans.
Well, the Balkans are a little bit different than Italian's mafia because they never really had this like movie mafia structure. It's here. It's basically really small, flexible groups. We call it like criminal cells. So basically one dominate like it's even, we cannot call it mafia, like a criminal figure who gathers a group around it. And this group can change during the time, can change leadership. Police can dismantle a group overnight in police action, but then group members were organized in another group or join with third group to do some joint business, and then they will dismantle again. So it's really flexible, and police has much more harder time to understand it. Like if you get from Serbia some police record from last year, it can be even outdated till now. You know, maybe this guy are not doing this in a sphere. And the groups are usually concentrated on one business. So I'm just doing like not drugs, but like cocaine. Other will do heroin. There will be just groups doing forgery of documents. Third will just do like murders, you know, hittings, and then they cooperate basically. So you don't have one group like doing like different activities. One can just launder money. And they cooperate, change the structures all the time. But what's important to know actually for Balkan Mafia is that what's interesting here is that mafia is literally produced by the state. So if you get back, because you know, we have communist period and we didn't have organized crime basically. And then Communist Party, in order to kill the people who fled from Serbia and from Yugoslavia, which was wider, consists of 6 countries, it's like it was Chetniks. It was like usually like nationalists who fled after communists, after Second World War, took over the country. So the Secret Service was looking small criminals who are origin from Balkans who lived in Europe, like usually engaged in robberies. And then the Secret Service started training them to become good hitmen. And they start for Secret Service to hit and killing these immigrants. And Secret Service, another way, was protecting them. If they are jailed in Germany, they can trade with Germany police to let them go, and they were covering them back. But what happened? Then, by giving them this really severe knowledge of murdering people in a really severe way, with snipers and all this stuff, and giving them really good expertise in security. So Serbian criminals really know how to behave in security way. They use like encryption, draft messages, even if they're low-educated people. They become really professional, and they learn that they can take over like a lot of capitals in Europe, because local gangsters didn't have such knowledge, and that's why the Balkan Mafia actually took over big towns all around Europe, especially in Germany, in Austria, on the north. You know, if you go to Copenhagen, you have like all the Serbian mobsters there. But on other way, what happened that even till today, the mafia become really close to police and secret service. So this nexus never really break up. And even like, can we just play the video? I'll just show you the last video we published a month ago. It was really popular in Serbia, because Cecilia said that she can rely on some sources from police. In Serbia, you cannot basically do this, because you see, this is the video we published recently. So the guy on the left side is Serbian Minister of Police, you know, and the guy of the right is second most important guy and biggest narco cartel on Balkan, you know. So they're like sitting and chatting.
The guy on the left is actually also the former prime minister of Serbia, and he's the current head of the OSCE. So
we can see like the chief of mafia and chief of police, right, sitting together. So that's reality in Serbia. So you can imagine how really you can make real source inside of the police. It's really hard. And that's why the reason I also said that I also was always learning how to get more as sources outside, even in crime underworld, who will be in the end more secure and useful than talking with somebody in police. So they really are tied in different ways with the police. And even mafia and Balkan thinks that they work for the state. They corrupt all the levels of the state. So they corrupt like former prime minister of Serbia. They also corrupt a prime minister of Montenegro. And by corrupting them, they think they're in the service of the state through corruption, you know. So it's kind of really weird when you talk with them. They think that basically they're doing kind of a good thing, and that you, as a journalist, are some kind of outlaw of everything. Especially if you're working for some NGO who's funded by some Western funds, they will even see some kind of spy thing who's basically against the state. They will protect. So it's really interesting mentality. But that's basically.
right, actually, I think if you saw the first thing, if you put up that little slide that we had from the first session, here I'm listed as the person who's sowing chaos, but actually that attack was against Stefan. They were using my fact that I'm an American to make the obvious jump of, if he's American, he works for the CIA, and then Stefan now works for me as I'm the puppet master, and so that's a way of hurting you.
Yeah. Just like, so what they say, this came up after we published this video, because when we published this video, it was really, really big mess in the Republic, as you can imagine, because we have prime minister sitting with like cocaine smuggler, right? And so it was really big mess, and this newspaper, it's pro-governmental newspaper, you know? So basically government published story against us, you know, protect themselves, and they say that Drew is the man who's making chaos in Serbia because he published these videos. So they spin it in this way, and since he's like American, I'm kind of American spy who basically, for him, published this video. Right. So I'm just saying, in Serbia, you'll not be a hero. When you arrest a crime, you'll be kind of outlaw, you know? And it's kind of really a different way how you look things there.
So how serious is organized crime? I mean, it's you know, a lot of people talk about it being global. A lot of people talk about it being modernizing, as you mentioned, Cecilia, actually sending people out to get the kind of training that they need for going forward. How do you see this playing out? What kind of danger is there to us as journalists? What should we really be looking at going forward on this issue of organized crime? Let's start with Stefan.
Start with me. Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
We'll start with Cecilia.
Can you put up the website, just a second. Right, and if you can scroll it, this is the mafia blog that we try and do almost daily for Corrective with Julia and Margherita. And there is also a German version. And why am I starting from this? It's because what we're trying to do, it's just like a small effort on one of the countries we feel is the best haven for our mafias, especially for the 'Ndrangheta, but not only. It's just a perfect place to be and to invest money in because nobody checks the source of this money. There is no anti-mafia law. They cannot do wire intercept. They cannot seize assets. So even if they get caught for, like, so say, drug smuggling, they might get trial and convicted for drug smuggling, but their power as a network, as a mafia network, will be untouched. And this is true for Germany, but it's true for many other countries in the world. And we all think that the threat that our mafias are posing to the world is completely, well, not only unreported, but is completely misunderstood. I mean, nobody's really posing the attention that we need. The 'Ndranghetas and completely, things have changed over the past 10 years, even less. They became so powerful and reached to the point that they completely overcame the Cosa Nostra, and now they're dealing with ex-Sicilian mafia families in New York, like the Gambino, Bonanno, and they're directly dealing with the Mexican cartels, with the Brazilian narcos, and all the others. So this means that they're controlling most of the cocaine business of Europe, which is just huge, of course. And this immense amount of money needs to be laundered and reinvested. And this is happening, well, we proved it's happening in Africa, but it's happening in any rich economy or thriving economy. There is no point for them investing in Italy, first because we're poor, second because their assets can be seized. And so for them, like, the biggest threat in Italy is exactly that, when we can touch their money and we can get their assets. Whereas in the rest of the world, nobody's actually, at the moment, nobody cares. Nobody's checking this money. But we really feel that, this job is too big for us to do it alone, and we really would like, in this process, to build a better reporting with reporters from any other country to look into the phenomenon, because they're really nearly everywhere. It's like a virus. And while in Serbia they think that they work for the state or something like that, like they do good for the state, our mafia's main goal, and they're also very ritualistic. Somehow they got some of the Masonic Christian rituals and they changed them and made them suit their rituals. So affiliation, it's a very religious thing for them in a way. Like, you don't betray once you've been affiliated through blood. And the problem is that, they want to be the anti-state. And that's not just for Italy. Any economy in any country they infiltrate, the actual aim is that one. A year and a half ago, when we did Mafia in Germany, David Schraven managed to get in touch with an ex-killer of Cosa Nostra who paid his bill by being in jail 20 years. Then he moved to Germany, and there he was contacted again by the structures, and he was really good. And if you go on that thing, you will be able to see a documentary. And there is an interview with him explaining with a chessboard how the formation of mafia works. So first they get some small guys into a country to start investing some monies, maybe in pizzerias and stuff, and they start controlling the streets. And then slowly, you get to the point of having the queen of the chess board, which might be, in this case, Matteo Messina Denaro himself, who nobody knows where he's hiding, but we heard he might be hiding sometimes also in Germany. So I really think the threat is not perceived.
Mexico. How powerful are the cartels in Mexico, and how much do they influence the economy and the politics?
They control, we think, they are in everything, and in the government, They are part. They are, I don't know, they control territory, they control the routes, they control many population, economics. And I was thinking what we can do, collaborative work, no? The journalists. I think that is the safest way, more training, and we need special training to follow the money, and to follow the politicians, no? And the businessmen who work or who are part of these cartels, professionalize our reporting techniques in different, be more specialized, and we need funds to continue the investigations. In many places, when the journalists are investigating and are near to one politician or one cartel, and they're going to run a story, they are threatened. So, and they have to flee, and they have to leave the country or leave the city. So I think we need funds for these people continue the investigations in the place where they are refugees, and sometimes run together the same story, publish at the same time different medias, all this information, and create networks, no? National and transnational, because this problem is Mexico and it's Italy and it's they have arms in the whole world, in Central America, in South America. So we have to make networking as they do it. We have to do the same, no?
So let's talk about that, Stefan. How do we report on this issue? What advice are you going to give to people who are out there? What's the basic toolbox that they need to start reporting on organized crime?
Okay, so we have like basically three fields we can report when it's organized crime, right? One is money laundering and everything what is financially. We have another field which is investigating the crime activity of this group. It can be like drug smuggling, human trafficking, smuggling of artifacts, wherever. And third field is corruption. And I'm putting in this line because I believe like still the easiest is financial part. Because you have these money trails and you have documents and you have company structure, something you can really rely on by even research from your office, like sitting there. And then if you go further, it's getting more and more complicated in a way that like even corruption in the end, it's not even possible to prove. Like I published like various stories about relation between mafia and politics, but it's just a story about relation. We really never proved that somebody like received bribe. Even when we publish these videos, we even have video where you can see that mafia member is having some white envelope and then that he's giving to this guy, but we don't know what is inside, right? So like it's really hard to nail down this. But I don't want to talk much about like the first part, money laundering. I think like there's even here some workshops where you can go and learn about how journalists can track down the assets of financial structures and so on. So basically, you can learn some basic like journalist skills and databases you can visit, and then you can start basically tracking down the money, right? So this is the first part. For journalists, it was always more difficult how to investigate group by itself. The problem is there is like how to basically prove that is the group. But in terms like if you really like kind of concentrate on this, you can really get great results. So what we did, we even have really great stories we published when we really reconstruct the group, like in drugs, like so who are the members and so on. So always you need to start with something which is opened by some law enforcement. You cannot do it other way. So you should concentrate on some police operation for which you believe that touch something which can be large structure, and which will be kind of good point for you to start. Like, I don't know, like 3 criminals can be arrested in Vienna from your country. And local police in Vienna can see some small case, but for you actually can be the first moment to reconstruct much greater this case. And then, as long as you have a couple of these individuals, then you start researching who they are and their crime history, right? And then you'll see that most of the gangsters, they always have some crime history when they were like more in childhood and through their development. And then you'll have much more basically court cases you can rely on. Then you'll see who appears as a witness on this case. Sometimes criminals call their friends or their associates to support them by giving some statements towards them. And then basically you expand this network of people. That's basically how you do. And gathering more and more and digging these court cases. This should be always followed by, especially nowadays, research on social networks. And it's crazy how much stuff actually we got from Facebook and so on. So, criminals, they usually don't make their own profiles. That's clear. But they cannot control the whole family they have. And you will always, I'm sure, for each crime figure, you'll find some of them, if it's not like wife, then you'll find a lover or children, which usually they cannot control never till the end, that will open their Facebook account. And then, if you follow like their birthday parties, they go and so on, you will start noticing interesting people on the photos. And that will kind of make you this kind of social engineering. Because the whole thing is to expand a wider network of people through crime records and through social networks. And then, first time you think that you learn something which most likely police don't know, which is really not hard, like, because you will do international this investigation. So like Serbian police don't know that these guys are connected with some guys in Italy or France. That's why it's really important to have your colleagues around the world. You cannot do by yourself. You need to have journalist colleagues around the world. So, first thing you learn that you can go to your police, and tell them some interesting info that they may know. That you find that this guy have company in Austria or wherever, you know. Then you start building the sources. Because I never heard that some journalists build serious police sources if he didn't have nothing to give them. In reality, it always should be some kind of small trade of information, not in dirty way trade, like that you're giving them documents and stuff, but they need to understand that you know the story and they need to get interested to talk with you. So in next step, you basically start building your own sources. And then it's also important that you start building your also sources in underworld. And then in that phase, you're kind of strong enough, and in that moment you will know what the story is, what is the group, and then you just need to figure out how to prove it. And so the most important is to learn, and then proving is just kind of technicality, right? so it's like, for instance, this guy who appeared in video, who was one of the, maybe the second most important guy of this drug network, he was not even known in Serbia. And what happened, our colleague Paul Radu, I don't know if he's here or not, I mean, he's working, so here he is. So he knew, that's why it's really important to have this friends all over, right? So he was, as I remember, in Argentina on some conference, and he met Argentinian judge who was doing case on Serbian smugglers there. And luckily Paul know that I'm following this case. And this judge gave him a tremendous amount of the documents he have in this court case, but I know for this Argentinian court case, so I basically know for this name. But inside there was also documents from DAA and British agency SOCA, which basically, who were following group, show us much more names, which we didn't know. And from this intelligence report, we learn that there's like 2 leaders of the group, not the one I thought in the moment. And soon, the Paul gave me the name of this guy, we start researching them, and in a couple of months, we actually published that we knew it's like another big guy there who's not even known in Serbia at that moment. And we published stories about his involvement in drugs, how he was smuggling drugs with the ships. We published a story about his businesses, and in the end, a couple years ago, we finally published these videos about his political connection. And so this guy was prosecuted 4 months after we published stories. So we published in summer 2012. In October, I think he was prosecuted, and even his property was seized after our stories. Okay. I'm not saying it's just because our stories, right? But of course, when you publish this, you kind of in public make kind of better atmosphere that this can happen.
Okay. Cecilia, you want to add anything to that process?
I think it's been pretty, I mean, I agree on everything. Just, we can add something like, well, the trade of information, how you called it, is something that we, especially lately, as the more we investigate, the more we discover in different investigation, the more this happens, of course. Also because we don't have to respect rogatory timing to get information. I can just phone up Stefan and ask for some help on checking a company, whereas institutions need like months, and some countries won't even reply to them. Something that has been very useful to us as social networks, especially Facebook, you will be surprised from how little privacy they apply, most of these people. And it's very good, not just what they post, but especially the friends network, because you find more people and you start investigating more people. So that is a good start for sure. But I think especially for the Italian mafia, we have a history of reporting in our country. There's been brilliant journalists who've been on ground in Calabria and Sicily and all these regions writing for like over 20 years. So I think the most important thing is studying a lot, reading a lot, and learning the names of people, because then you might find them on, like, for example, a foreign police operation, and then the name clicks. And this is, I think, one of the most important starts. And then obviously you can't remember all these names. So something we're doing since we started reporting, we're keeping like a kind of database of all the court records and police operations. So when we have a name, we just enter it and see if there's been a track of different operations. They might even just be quoted there, but it will give you a hint. And something that we found extremely, extremely important, especially for the mafia in Deutschland investigation, has been finding a local journalist. Because most of these people, for example, in Germany, when they listen to them, they call each other with nicknames, and you will never know who's this guy. But then if you go, for example, let's say they're from Agrigento, and you go in Agrigento, and then, for example, we work with Franco Castaldo, who's absolutely the expert of the mafia from Agrigento in the world. He knows most of them, so you just say a nickname, and he will say, oh, okay, that's the right guy, and then phone up his police source from local police station and gets records they will never find, because we don't have an archive or a database you can search in our country. So you really have to go in a tiny police station, sometimes on ground, to find information on these people. So I think the local approach is very important. Working with colleagues is very important. And, keep track of the operation, start checking names. Sometimes they get unreported. That might be a start.
We keep a database of organized crime figures that we continuously add to. Any thoughts from you, Marcello?
I think many of my approach have been to the victims of the violence, especially, for example, the parents who are looking for their children who were disappeared by the cartels. All these people who are brave and who are really hurt, and they go inside the cartel to the territory, they penetrate, and they always have like or many times they have the whole map. And I don't know, for me it's really important talk with them, because they continue looking for their children, but always the main preoccupation, the most worrying thing is how to protect them, because many times they don't know what will be the impact of the information that they give you, and they can be killed. So I always thinking about how to protect the sources, more than, or at the same time that you protect yourself, how you protect the people who you interview.
Okay,
So,
let's...
just one hint, for instance, especially Balkan groups. I think it could be similar in Italy. They are really tight, and if you look one group, they starting from one town, one area, and then basically develop. So, for instance, if you live in Denmark, Germany, if you follow like a couple of Montenegrins arrested in 5 different cases, like small drug dealers. But if you notice in criminal records, that they are all of them in different cases born in the same small town, like village in Montenegro, most likely they work for the same enterprise.
Yeah.
And, yeah, like I had this case from a cop from Denmark who arrested many people from Berane. Berane is really basically village in Montenegro, and he thought it's like a huge place because there are like hundreds of these guys. He's like, how big this place is, there's like hundreds of criminals there. So, for instance, if you just take like a period of 5 years and you're just gathering from the local towns, like where they're born, you can make some kind of logic. And then you can research businesses in your country who are owned by, for instance, Montenegrins coming from this place. Because they also in businesses will tie to their people, and this could be kind of, even through fishing, you can start analyzing this group. I mean, you just need to be creative. That's the whole thing, because in investigating just organized crime, it's not just you learn some skills and some databases. Here is like really like, you know, like police work. You need really to be creative to discover the structures.
And it's also, the structures are built upon themselves, so it's, as you say, an anti-state, and so it tends to loop in itself, so anybody in the loop is likely to be part of that crime figure.
Something, just to very quickly, something that we also figured out is very important is brokers and intermediate figures, because sometimes we meet them again and again in different operations. And the moment you meet them again, you know that there is something dodgy there. Although it might not be an anti-mafia operation, it might be, I don't know, like a corruption and politics operation. But then if you meet, for example, a figure that went down to Africa to buy diamonds for a political party, which recently happened, and then you know that this guy was involved done some kind of brokerage service for the 10 years before, then you know that there is some kind of trace there. So I think brokers are a good starting point too.
And because Italian political parties need a lot of diamonds. Okay, do we have questions from the audience? Yes, over here. You can stand up and shout it and I'll repeat it. And
Hi, I'm Linda from Albania. I have a question for the 3 of them.
okay, she's got a question for the 3 of them.
Yeah. They have made a profile for the mafia. For example, one of Cartella that I think everyone from us they knows in Mexico, mafia in Italy, and Stefan for the Balkans. About the information that you have, do you think that it was collaborated between mafia, which means mafia with the Balkans groups, because in Balkans they are the group, you can say it wasn't like Stefan said, it wasn't a pyramid that it was. And the reason that I am making the question, it was because what happened in Albania, it was Albania and Mexico, we haven't a political communicated, which means for legal documents we need to go in Italy to take a visa for Mexico. But what it was interesting in Albania, it was we have a president that calls himself that he was ambassador in Mexico. These guys, it was never investigated it's very story. It was never investigated in Albania for 2 reasons. He was very, very connected with our prime minister and with our politicals, and he has media in Albania, which it was very, very powerful. So I wanted to answer, do you think they had collaborated between them or not? Thanks a lot.
Yes, I mean, they cooperate better than us, journalists, you know. So you have first mafia cooperating the best, then journalists, and the worst are the cops. So we are somewhere basically in between. And I mean, I never really investigate any group from Balkan which is not tied, first of all, of course, with some Italian group. I mean, it must appear there. And usually if they're doing cocaine, of course, with different groups from South America. So it's almost impossible. Always need also to call some cops from Italy, prosecutors, and so on. So I mean, they cooperate like better than us. They even have some meetings. There was police can knowledge about a couple of meetings happening in Balkans, and when persons from like South American drug cartels were coming in Bulgaria and in Croatia, when they were like gathering different organized crime groups to discuss about how they will do transport of the drugs. So you're like it's like a global investigative conference, it's just like global cocaine smuggling conference, and then they come and they organize.
Today's panel is on efficient drug smuggling.
Another area.
For the drug. So for instance, South Americans need to rely on somebody on Balkans, so they gather like a couple of groups and they had like meetings like this discussing like really.
And they actually have groups from places like Colombia that come into this region and explain how to traffic drugs through the region. So they will have experts from Latin America training, Balkan groups and other...
Like here, trainings, panels, all the stuff, you know.
Not quite panels, maybe, but...
Okay.
You want to add something, Cecilia?
Well, all what he said is very representative. Of course, they collaborate. But the other thing that we can see in Italy is that obviously our mafias will never accept that foreign criminal organization will work on their land without permission. So what we've been witnessing is an increasing outsourcing service. Basically, for example, to give you an example, like I live close to Perugia, which is a city that has a very high drug problem. And there you have the Albanian organized crime and the Nigerian organized crime doing different type of jobs. And it's kind of, organized in a way that they're not going to step one on the other. The interesting thing is that our own mafias are only investing there. They're not even really active or living there. So they're controlling it from, for example, from Naples or from Reggio Calabria. They don't need to be there. They have their new friends doing the job for them. So the ones getting arrested for drugs when it happens is the foreign mafias, so that they don't get in trouble. And this, obviously, it's like concerning Italy within the country. But then when it gets internationally, they need brokers, and these brokers are well trained within the mafia structures.
Marcello, cooperation.
I had problems to hear the question, sorry.
Talk about cooperation between Mexican cartels and other mafia groups around the world.
Yes, the Mexican mafia now is in a lot of places. For example, first with Colombia and all the South America.
Guatemala, Honduras.
No, the south, the places where the coca is grown. And all Central America is the Mexican mafia controlled whole Central America. But in many cities of United States, it has been investigated that the Mexican cartels have different places, different cities, and in Italy, the Zetas, and in the whole, in the whole globe, I think they have left their footprints.
It's a wonderful global business. Another question. We have...
I am Has from Indonesian Alliance of Independent Journalists. Mafia, cartel, and mobster is never-ending.
Put the microphone right up
Yeah.
here. Yep, yes.
One more time. I am Has from Indonesia Alliance of Independent Journalists. Mafia, cartel, and mobster is a never-ending topic to talk. We can find them in over all the world here, and also in my country, in Indonesia. We have the same organization. And the oldest one is called Pemuda Pancasila, set up by the military government in 1965 to attack the Communist Party. And in that occasion, around 2 million people is killed by the military and mafia. Mm-hmm. And until now, they're still in power, although the political climate in Indonesia is improved.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. We never dare to make a conference about them because it's very dangerous. My question is, how do you protect yourself when conducting investigation reporting about the organized crime? The second one is, what's the worst situation you ever faced when dealt with them? Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to handle it?
Well, this is like how to, it's different topic, so we can sit like full day, just talk about protection, but of course, first let's start, you need to really take care for your communication. And most of the problems the journalists get, it's because they don't communicate in secure way. It doesn't mean that they're just somebody will listen to their phones. Journalists usually when they report or organized crime, they like go with friends in their pub and drink the beer and talk how they investigate mafia, because then they are like the main person in their you know, between their friends.
My friends will fall asleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know. But I mean, I just want to say journalists usually don't behave in a secure way, and they talk a lot. And then the word, what they investigate, really comes very easily to the person they don't supposed to hear about it. Because you just don't need to forget one thing. I mean, of course, if you don't investigate some local dealers, football hooligans, but if you investigate some serious mafia structure, right? To kill you, it's a process. So it doesn't mean like usually some serious guys in organized crime, they don't just decide like in a second they'll kill you. They need to little think about it, and they need to organize this. You have like some killings of journalists in Balkan. For instance, there's one little bit controversial journalist, but who was killed in Croatia. He was followed by 3 months by organized crime group. So they follow him to learn about his habits, about his behavior, when is the weak spot when they can kill him. In the end, they kill him. And there was no any way he will survive, because they planted the bomb in a motorbike next to his car, which exploded and killed him in a car. But even if he survived this explosion, there's one person sitting in the building 100 meters from it with sniper shoot to kill him if he survived this. So eventually kill you. But they need some time to prepare murdering, to understand about your habits and so on. So, I mean, if they learn it too late, it's really hard for them, right, to organize on the spot, like. But if they learn and then you investigate them another year and a half, then you're just increasing your chances to be killed, right? This is just one thing. So you have a lot of measures of precaution which you need to follow. Preparation to kill the percentage of the chance. I think now I'm quoting Drew. I heard from him, but that's this. So like there's lots of things basically you do, and everything which you really take care, it will kind of killing the percentage of chance you got killed. That's the whole point. How you, you know, for sure when you publish some, you know, important story, it's not a perfect idea to go in town and get drunk, you know, or the way how you coming from your office to your home. Is your office secured enough? Where is your office? You know, to who you share, what are you doing, and so on. So like, you need to have special way of life which will not make you perfectly safe, but will kind of decrease chances that you're going to get harmed, right? That's the first step. Second step, it's always you need to have some sources who in the end can warn you if something, you know, goes bad and can actually help you. Like we rely, especially on OCCRP, so luckily like OCCRP really take care for this issue. So if you have more questions, we can communicate with you through emails, but OCCRP, as I understand, Drew is always ready to give any money to protect journalists. So if you feel under threat, they can move you from your country for a couple of months. You can completely disappear and return. Then other tricks like you can switch journalists. So you can stop reporting and your colleague continue reporting. Then you can add third, fourth, and sixth one journalists. And it's more complicated to kill 8 persons working on a story than 1. So I mean, there's a lot of tricks. That's the problem. So it's not something we can now tell, but...
And also counter surveillance in that 4 months that gives you an opportunity to find that somebody's following you. And if you're constantly looking for that, it's very difficult to follow people, actually. If you do it, you'll find that it's difficult to do it really well. And over a 3-month period, you can usually you can identify somebody who's following you if you use good techniques and have good awareness. And then once you identify it, that somebody's following you, it can only mean one thing, 2 things, that they're trying to find your sources or they're trying to kill you. And often the murder does not take place right after the story, but it'll take six months later, they'll kill you 18 months later to decouple your reporting from who you are. So you're not safe. If nothing's happened in 2 weeks, it doesn't mean you're safe. The danger starts about 6 months out and goes for the next year and a half.
Yeah.
And that's typically how they do it.
And just one more thing. So, like Drew said, so like if they're smart, when you publish story, there's like big attention. That's like lowest chances to get harm after story. But if they're smart, they can wait for your next big story. And then they basically can hit you, right? And everybody think that person that story is about is against you. Nobody really realize. So like Drew said, you're always in some kind of permanent danger and you should look in this way. And really important is, and I think the journalists always make kind of mistake, is especially when you're meeting and interviewing these guys. You never really go alone. You are the one who's supposed to decide where to meet them. You always find some place in public. It could be like kind of private space, but in center of town, in some lobby of hotel, in some public, right? You always need to have your colleague when you go to interview the criminal, right? Not just the colleague will physically save you, but maybe criminal can put some money on the table, and then he can take a photo and blame that he corrupted you. So you need to have your colleague who kind of monitoring, seeing this, and to be witness of this situation. So you need to take care for everything you do and not to get in some completely risk situation. Because I think the most of the journalists get in problem by not following these things.
Of course, it's different in Mexico where they might kill you right after the story to show that they have that power and that impunity.
Yes, because impunity is the cause. They know that they kill people and nobody will be punished. So that's the rule.
That's
Mexico. Yeah. What I saw, it doesn't apply.
Meet people in airports on the other side of the security, if you want to, or in a hotel that has security. That's a good trick to kind of make sure that somebody doesn't have a gun. Yes.
I think we can go for the next question.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Fouad Youssefi at Swedish Public Service Television, a program assignment Investigate. First of all, thank you all for your great work, really important, and I cannot even imagine, Marcela, how it is to work as a journalist in Mexico. Thank you a lot for your work. So to my question, I was just wondering, you all have been talking a little bit about your sources amongst the criminal organizations, and I was wondering how close do you guys allow yourself to get to those criminal figures, and where do you draw the line? Do you have almost like a friendship-ish relationship, or do you keep very, very professional and distant, or how do you do?
Excellent question.
Yeah. So, I mean, you cannot really become friends with them. I mean, it could look like friends, but they don't need you as a friend. In the end, eventually, for every source, from criminal part, for them it's always important just one thing, to take over control over you in some way, you know? That's all. They really don't need you as a friend in the end. So knowing this, you need to keep this relation not to become so close.
What do you mean take over you?
So they can control you basically, because they can use you as some tool. Like still, I mean, being a journalist is kind of powerful, so if they can what is interesting for criminals, because they have this really good street level education, basically, they can really easily understand the weaknesses of the people, you know? Are you afraid? You know, so they can try through threats to do something, or they can maybe corrupt you, or they cannot corrupt you or threat you, but you kind of have some really big ethical standards. So they become friends with you and then make a fake situation that basically you betray them and then using your guilty to control you. So they really can do these psychology things. It's all the time happening. And you can never really rely on these sources. Once I was in situation to be more afraid from my source than the person I report to it. Because how it goes. So one criminal source gave me one basically picture, let's say, which we used to prove one story, to publish. And then he told me like that this should be confidential, that he gave me this. And this photo showing relation between one criminal guy and another politician, right? But the thing is, the same day he went to this guy and he said like, hey, I give this to this journalist. so he'll publish this because they were owed some money to him. So he's like, if you don't, or he was trying to extort money from him, I don't know. So, but basically he said like, so I give this to journalists, so I mean, if you don't pay, this will be published. But, if you set it up, I'll set up this not to be published, And then you can have your source who give you file coming after you to stop you publish. So, I mean, these kind of crazy things can happen. So I never really build some, maybe one like real source, which is usual journalist source where you can rely on him coming. It's always stressful dealing with these guys in the end. And you never trust them, that's the whole thing.
Okay.
That's good enough for
Anyone else comment?
So far, obviously no friendships. How close do we allow to, I mean, we didn't have all that big criminal source because it's, as I said at the beginning, it's really hard to get in touch with the high hierarchy. It's actually impossible. So our criminal sources are more like either people that got out of the structure or like maybe because they've been arrested and jailed for a few years, so they're not really into the business anymore that much, or they might be, but they still can say something. They say something to police, they say something to journalists. Of course, you're not friends, you don't go for dinner together. But some of them have our phone number, so in case they need to contact us, that they can. But I think another good relation that is always not friendship, but a good relation that you might have as a source is lawyers of criminals. Because at least in Italy, obviously you do it in terms of professional respect, and you know that they won't say anything that will harm their clients. But in many cases, they're more keen to talk to you instead of police or prosecutors if, for example, investigations are ongoing. They might give you some documents. They might actually want to represent the point of view of the criminal, so they might be a good source too. But we never got into friendship with sources of this kind.
Okay, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop right now, but they're going to be around for the next couple of days. I encourage you to come up, introduce yourself, and ask them any other further questions. So let's give them a good round of applause. Thank you.